Okay, so here's what we're going to do. And like I said, our goal is basically to kind of look at this right here. And kind of my title for this would be um, dealing with 3 or more events. And what I mean by that is that when you look at even this problem, which, like I said, was pretty hard, we were mostly just looking at the conjunction between two questions, right? So it's like two questions, and basically this two-way table summarizes the all the different combinations of correct and wrong that you can get on these two questions. Now the thing is that like what starts to happen once you have 3 questions or something like that? How do we start enumerating all of the contingencies? And the answer is that we need to do something different than a two-way table, because a two-way table only looks at basically combinations of two variables. Okay, it doesn't have that third dimension that allows us to kind of look at the different combinations between 3 different things. Okay, so when we look at this problem, I want you to note here that this cable company, so the large cable TV company, they have these services, right? And usually a cable company basically sells more than just cable, right? They sell more than just TV. And in this case, they sell cable, they sell internet, and for those that still buy it, they sell telephone. Okay. And basically, once we have those 3 different things, a customer can technically pick and choose the combinations that they buy. Okay, so some people might only want TV and nothing else. Some people might only want internet and nothing else. Some people might only want telephone. Yeah, that's what they mean, like a landline service. Um, some people want internet and telephone. Some people want internet and TV and not landline service. Some people buy all 3. And in fact, when you buy all 3, generally that's what they push you to do, right? They push you to bundle them all together. And so I know when we were using Comcast, which reminds me now, I have to make sure I call and cancel. But when we were using Comcast, we still were buying a landline, just because it was kind of functionally the same amount of money to buy all 3 than it was to buy the 2 things that we were looking for. Okay. And so what we have here is really a confluence of basically 3 different things. Okay. And so the question then becomes, how do we summarize this so that we can kind of do a fairly similar process as we did earlier? And the answer is that what we're going to do is we're going to use a Venn diagram instead of a two-way table. Now we could have actually technically kind of done what we were doing with a two-way with a Venn diagram for the prior problems, but I don't think it would have made as much sense. And so basically what a Venn diagram is going to do is it's going to keep track of all of the combinations of these 3 different things. Okay, and the way it's going to do this is that we are going to start off with one circle for one of the services. So in this case, let's just have this be the oh, I'm still drawing circles. Let this be the telephone. Why am I still drawing circles? Stop it. Stop it. Oh, stop that. Yeah, that's why. Telephone. Okay. And then what we're going to do is now we're going to draw another circle. Okay. And we're going to draw it maybe like right here. And this circle is basically going to represent, say, and let me erase all these like extra junk. this is going to represent our cable. And let me actually move this over here. And notice how they overlap. And basically what the overlap is supposed to represent is inside here, we're going to put all the people who have both telephone and cable. They're going to live in this kind of little in-between zone. Okay. Now, we have 3 services here, so I'm going to draw one more kind of circle. Okay. And that one circle is going to kind of intersect with all 3 of the circles like that. Okay. And that circle is going to represent our 3rd service, right? We're going to have internet right here. Internet. Okay. And what we're seeing here is we have all these people who use internet. Well, some of them use both telephone and internet, but not other services. Some of them use all 3, which are going to go right here in the intersection of all 3. And some of them use internet and cable and not telephone. And so what you have here with the intersection of these 3 circles, these 3 Venn diagrams, is each little region is going to represent each combination of the 3 services that we can have. Okay? And now what we are going to do is in this table, and I might only have enough time just to fill it out once, is we are going to fill in the numbers that satisfy each of these combinations. So if you just use telephone and nothing else, you're going to be out in this region. If you just use cable and nothing else, you're going to be in that region. If you just use internet and nothing else, you're going to be in that region. And just like before, we're going to start with 10,000 individuals. Okay? 10,000 individuals. All right. So now let's go back to the problem. And let's give some labels for each of these just so that we don't have to write everything. Whenever I'm talking about cable, I'm going to use the letter C. Whenever I'm talking about internet, I'm going to use a capital I. And whenever I use telephone, I'm going to use a capital T. Okay. Now this over here is all about our TV. Okay, so T and internet, right? Because it's and. This is all about TV and, sorry. Oh, shit. Sorry, that's a bad choice of thing. Cable and internet. Okay, this is all about cable and TV. And this is all about internet and telephone. And then this right here describes what's in common with all 3. So cable and internet and telephone. Okay. All right. So when I look over here, notice how each of these has percentages, right? So it's percentages. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I am going to start from, not from the most general up here. Okay. I'm not going to start from the most general. I'm actually going to start from the most specific, which is basically the intersection of all 3. So on my diagram, I'm going to start filling in this diagram from the inside out. Okay? I'm going to go in from the most specific out. And here's how I'm going to do it. So what we have is the probability of cable and internet and telephone, all 3. So let's just call this all 3, is, it says 15%. Or 0.15. So what does that mean? That means that 0.15 of the 10,000, okay, if I had 10,000 people, I would expect about 15% of them to use all 3. So I get 15% times 10, 1, 2, 3, and that's about 1,500. Now, what am I going to do with those 1,500? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay them in the middle right here. So this is 1,500 right here, because basically 1,500 use telephone, cable, and internet. Okay. Now, once I have that middle filled out, then what I'm going to do next is start to pick off the two service values. So I'm radiating out from the inside. So I'm going to fill in these three kind of extra little cells next. Okay, and here's how I'm going to do it. Okay, so notice how they said internet and TV. Okay, internet and TV. So it's internet and TV. The probability that you are going to have an internet and TV user in this group is 23%. Okay, so that means that 23% of our 10,000 people, 23% of their 10,000 people are going to use both internet and TV. Okay, so that means we're going to have about 2,300 people. Your internet and telephone, internet and telephone, internet and telephone. Maybe the, yeah, sorry, we don't have enough letters to make them not all confusing. But 23% use internet and phone. Because if I make it P, it's not going to be good. So let's just call it INT and PHONE. I just didn't want to have to write down as many words.
You called it a cable rather than a TV. That's why.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But then if I use P, then P is also for probability, and I keep, yeah, it's not good. I'm sorry, everybody. Internet, phone, internet, phone, internet, phone, internet, phone. So we have 2,300 internet phone users. Okay, now here's how I'm going to use that 2,300. So we have our phone users here and our internet users here. And what this tells us is that we should have 2,300 people filling up this whole intersection. But I've already accounted for this 1,500. So what that means is that this area here is going to be that 2,300 minus the 1,500 that I've already accounted for. Because this whole thing, all of the telephone and internet users put together, all the phone and internet, is going to be 2,300. Yeah, internet and phone. I've already accounted for 1,500 that use all three. So that's going to leave us with 2,300 minus 1,500. That's going to leave us with 800 people in this little area right here. Okay, so see how this is a little like what we did earlier, right? This is a little like what we did with the, when we would have our one cell, we were always able to figure out another cell. That's kind of what's happening here. We just have more complex interactions. Okay. So now after I did internet and phone, now let me do cable. Let me adjust cable TV and phone. Okay, now what they say is cable TV and phone is about 21%. So I'm going to take 21% of the 10,000, which is going to be 2,100. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here, and what they said is cable and phone. So this is cable and phone, cable and phone. So this is about this little intersection. Should be 2,100. So that means that this little leaf here, this little extra part, is going to be that 2,100 minus the 1,500 that we've counted already, which is going to be 600. So that means we have 600 people who use telephone and cable TV, but not internet as part of the package. And then I think you guys can kind of see the next step. We're going to then take the cable and internet. So this is cable, TV, and internet. And what they say is that we have cable and internet, we have about 25%. So if we take this multiplied by 10,000, what we're going to have is 2,500. And so what this is going to allow us to do, okay, is it's going to allow us to take this area here, this 2,500, and if we take away that 1,500 that we've already accounted for, then basically what we're going to get is 1,000 people. Now, why are we getting 1,000 people here? Well, this is basically telling us these are the people who use cable and internet, but don't have the phone. Okay. Now, all that's left to fill out, okay, is the overall telephone users, right? Okay. And the overall cable users who don't mess with all the other services, just the people who only use one of those others. Well, that's what this last piece of information is going to help us figure out. So if we just look at just cable alone, cable TV alone, they say that 80% of the customers, 80% of our customers have the cable TV of some sort. Okay. And so that means we have 8,000 people total who use that. Okay. But I go down here and I look, what 8,000 is going to be this whole circle. I've already accounted for a lot of those 8,000 people. Namely, I've accounted for 1,000 plus 1,500 plus the 600. Okay, so I've already figured out how 3,100 of the 8,000 what they use. Okay, so that means that the remaining, the people who don't use any other service but cable, is going to be 8,000 minus the 3,100 that I got from combining the ones I've already accounted for. And that's going to be 8,000 minus 3,100. And so that's about 4,900. Okay, and then we're going to do the same with telephone too. So if I go up to my telephone, it says that 32%. Okay, so for telephone, I should expect about 3,200. And exactly like before, I've already accounted for all these people in the telephone circle. So I accounted for the 800 who use, who also use the other service, and the 1,500 that also use everything, and the 600 who have both telephone and cable. So that's 2,900. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that 30. It was 3,200. Yeah, 3,200. And I'm going to take away all those people that I already counted. So this is 2,900 right there. And so we're going to take 3,200 minus 2,900, which equals to only 300. And Lana says, do you have to include the 800? And I say, yeah, because remember the 3,200 is everybody who uses telephone. Well, these 800 here were people who use telephone and internet. And so I totally have to include them. I have to include this one here. I have to include this one here. Anyone that's inside of this circle, I have to include. And then finally, for the last one, it says for internet, we had about 42%. So that means we should have 4,200 of the people who use the internet. And then once again, just like before, everything here should all add up to 4,200. But I've already accounted for 800 plus 1,500 plus 1,000. And so that's 3,300. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that 4,200 that I know it should be minus the 3,300 that I've already accounted for, and 4,200 minus 3,300, and that's going to be 900 people. Okay. So we have run out of time, but then what we're going to do once we have this is just basically answer these questions. Okay, so these questions are all about basically reading numbers off of this Venn diagram. Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. And